Hi everyone, my name is Marty Woznicki. I'm the Vice President of the Neuron ESB product team. I'm here today to run you through a high to mid-level technical demo of some of Neuron ESB's core features. As I go through the demo, I hope you'll see the flexibility and ease of use we've worked hard to build into the platform. For those of you who've never heard of the product, Neuron ESB is an application services and workflow integration platform built entirely on Microsoft.NET. The latter is important, especially if you're a .NET shop, because it means that you can use existing .NET resources like .NET assemblies, WCF, and existing Windows workflows to extend solutions built on our platform. This also means that native Neuron extensions like custom adapters, process steps, and workflow activities can all be written using Visual Studio and C#, letting you use the skills you already have. More importantly, we built Neuron because we thought it was crazy that businesses had to invest in long-term consulting contracts and specialized resources just to integrate their environment. Our goal with Neuron has always been time to market, ease of use, and putting you back in the driver's seat. As you can imagine, as an integration broker, Neuron has a number of capabilities that allow you to solve complex integration problems. Everything from messaging, service brokering, workflow automation, and general integration come out of the box. In fact, every feature in Neuron ESB is out of the box. Now that we've finished messaging, let's move on to another Neuron feature, business processes. Neuron ESB provides two features to build out and execute custom business logic, or in other cases, automate internal business processes entirely. The first one is the business process engine, the second one, the workflow engine. Now, why is this important? Because one of the roles of an integration broker is to function as a universal translator of sorts. Information can be published to the broker from any number of systems, applications, databases, or other technologies in any number of formats. In the integration world, one system should never have to know about the other system, its format, or its origins. This way, everything remains decoupled with zero dependencies, allowing any publishing or subscribing system to be modified or replaced without affecting any other existing publishing or subscribing system. To accomplish this, there needs to be something, both on the publisher and subscriber side of the equation, that can mediate the communication. For instance, on the publisher side, mediation would take place to normalize the incoming data into a canonical format before being published. On the subscriber side, the reverse mediation would take place to translate the canonical data to what can be appropriately consumed by the subscribing system. Hence, features like the process engine and workflow engine allow us to do just that and much more quickly, simply, and efficiently. To make this happen, both the business process engine and the workflow engine provide a graphical designer that allows you to visually create your business logic. Both support complex business flow constructs like for each, while loops, decision trees, and parallel processing. Both have a library of out-of-the-box activities that provide direct access to data sources, services, encoding, validation, translation components, as well as a number of other various functions, the goal of which is to greatly reduce the amount of custom code you need to write. If you need to extend, both allow you to write C# code directly into the design service without having to compile anything into assemblies. Both support testing directly in the designer. Both support dynamic updates. But where the business process engine differs from the workflow engine is in its targeted use cases. The business process engine was designed to allow users to create simple to complex business processes that are intended to execute quickly with minimal overhead, something that can be used comfortably in a request-reply type message pattern, like service calls where low latency is important. They're not designed to maintain state between each activity execution or have their progress visually tracked. That makes business processes ideal for things like mediation, service composition, and data aggregation patterns, scatter, gather, and veto patterns. Business processes can also be exposed as SOAP or REST-based services. Workflow, on the other hand, is quite the opposite. It's designed all around state, high availability, hosting, and tracking. They're long-running in nature, can correlate events, and support compensated transactions. They can be visually tracked and restarted. The workflow engine can be used to automate complex business processes that may take weeks or months to finish. Now that I've summarized them both, let's see about taking the business process engine for a bit of a ride. Our next demo does just that. Let's move back to the Neuron ESB Explorer specifically to the Processes tab, where the Business Process Designer is hosted. As you can see, the Business Process Designer is hosted directly within the Neuron ESB Explorer. A lot of different features here. You can test, .NET debug, zoom in and out, hence zoom, import, export. You can print out a report. Notice everything here. If there's C# code written in here, I can do code reviews using the print button, or just document the actual process. Pretty snazzy. Also, these are all dockable windows. If I have multiple ones open, I can take this, drag it off into its own window, organize them, drag them back. On the left-hand side, I have a library of business processes. I can put them in folders, organize these, right-click, create folder, etc., rename, delete. On the right-hand side, I have all the process steps. Now, we have about 44 or 45 out of the box. Now, we also have these language steps. You can drag and drop these on, just like so. And I can go ahead and open one. I have pure .NET IntelliSense. Makes it very easy. Compile errors on the bottom. I can manage reference assemblies, add custom assemblies I want, set breakpoints, all sorts of formatting options. Makes it pretty simple and easy to extend. And I don't have to compile any of these things into assemblies. Once I hit apply and save, it's done. I can do complete .NET classes if I'd like. All available to me, and everything's driven by a property grid. Just drag, drop, fill out the steps. Now, so you can extend business processes in a number of ways. Obviously, using the C# class, the C# step, VB.NET, using the existing steps, but you can also create your own custom process steps. We'll get into those a little bit later, but they function just like the steps we ship. They're a great way to encapsulate proprietary information and drive the use of it through properties. Again, pretty easy to do. So using all this, let's go ahead and create a simple process. Now, in our previous demo, we already had a topic, a publisher and subscriber created, right? And we were sending any information that we wanted back and forth. Well, now let's think about maybe validating the information. And if it's valid, translate it. And if it's not, maybe throw an error back. All this is really easy to do with Neuron. First, we're going to create a new process by simply selecting create new process from the new bar. There we are. And I'll just call this validate message. Now on this, I probably want to search and find a validate step. So I'll go ahead, drag it on. This actually executes an XSD schema. And I'll go ahead and find maybe a transform. This is going to execute XSL, XSLT. And I can actually link these directly to the repo, or I can simply add a new schema, a new transform to these, so there's no connection to the repository that we have. Now for the schema, I'll just go ahead and say, use the schema in the repo. So now if you change the one in the repo, it'll actually change the runtime behavior. And I'll just go ahead and say, let's use the XSLT that I currently have. Great. And you know what, let's get rid of the cancel. Cancel basically means silently die. Do not publish to the topic. I'm going to remove that and say, no, throw the error back to the calling client. And I want to know what's going on, so I'll just add a trace step. Now, I want to test this before I use it. So I can go in the repository, copy out the source document, just like so. Go back to processes, and I can hit this test button. I can put in the message. Now, this dialog lets me do a lot of things. I can load a previously saved ESB message. I can load a document from file. I can add custom properties on the fly in case of this process needs it. Or I can load environmental variables for a specific deployment group. I can add source ID, a topic, and I can hit OK to start. You're going to see a green box go around every step that executes. And I can see the result. Double click on the window, brings up the trace result. And I can see what happens if it's a bad message. So let's go ahead and just change the node real quick. Great. There we are. Hence the error message. Now I already have two topics up. Two test clients up. One, the publisher, one, the subscriber. And you know what? I can send in that same message and it can be bad, and it's going to make it to the other side if I send it because I'm not validating anything. So remember, the client API, the runtime, it's all self-aware. And the first time something's added, like a process, we compile it dynamically on the fly. You know, the client will pick it up automatically. You don't have to restart a lot of things. Actually, you don't have to restart anything. So I'll just go ahead, I'll hit apply. The only thing I need to do is I need to add this process to this publisher. So I'll go into messaging. We'll go to this publisher we previously created, and I'll go in the processes tab, and I'll just simply say edit process. Here I can add as many as I want. So I'll select the validate one, and notice there's an onPublish event. There's also an onReceive event. So this will execute before the message actually gets published to a topic. I'll hit apply, I'll hit save. Now remember, in our other demos, it takes about maybe a few seconds for things to take effect. So before, we were able to send this successfully, right? Even with this bad node. Now if I try to send this message, let's give it a shot. All right, hasn't quite popped up yet, so let's go ahead, hit clear. Let's try this again. Now I get my error message. So the client API detected a change on the server, and refactored itself. So now if I go ahead and change this into a good message, let's send it, it gets transformed. Great. Now what happens if I send in a different message? Well, let's grab one from the repository. I'll go ahead and go into payments batch, and I'll just get a record. There we are. Something like that. So this node doesn't exist for that schema. If I send it, it should generate the error, right? Record element not declared. So let's go ahead and add yet another schema and change things around. I'm going to go in here, processes, and I can add as many schemas as I like. So I'll just add the right one. I'll hit apply and I'll hit save. So again, after a few seconds, the client API will pick up that change. Now, if I send this message, it'll validate now, but the transform, it'll actually just output a lot of empty nodes because the data it needs, the paths it needs to get it from won't actually exist in this message. If I send this now, no error, but I pretty much get a lot of empty elements, what I expected. So now let's close this publisher. Let's go ahead and unwind him. We'll remove that process that we added. Just like so. All right, so we showed pretty much what a complex process can look like, the things that you can do. Showed a simple process and certainly how to test. Well, how about .NET debugging, right? It's kind of nice. With testing, we can't set a breakpoint. We can't stop. We can't see state. But if you use the .NET debugger feature, you can actually do those things. So let's go ahead and create a new process, see how that works. We'll go ahead and we'll name this test environment variables, just like so. And I'm just going to go ahead and add a C# step on this. I'll add a trace step too. There we are. And I'll just call this trace output. And I'll call this set debug. Great. And in this, I'll add a breakpoint like so, and I'll just add some code in here. Remember, we don't have to compile anything, so let's go var value string.empty, perfect. Var value name equals string.empty, perfect, and var account URL. Let's go ahead and retrieve something from the actual environmental variables collection at runtime. So this context object is very important. That's actually the context of the entire business process at runtime. And that context has a lot of cool things on it. Has the entire in-memory configuration that you can access. Document repository, adapters, service endpoints, processes, everything. Environmental variables, as well as all the logging information. So let's go ahead and just grab the account URL environmental variable. Let's see what that looks like. And remember, I can do all sorts of tracing, so I can write to the trace window when I'm testing or to Neuron log files. So in this case, I probably only want to do it if the logging level is set to info. So if context.instance has all my trace info, is info. Then let's do context.trace information. I'm sorry, context.instance trace information, and we'll just go count URL. Perfect. And now let's loop through all the variables for each var s in context.environment variables, just like so. And we're going to print each one out. Let's take a shortcut. And string.format, just like so. And let's do, and let's go value, just like so. And let's do s.key, s.value. Perfect. And now let's go ahead and set the variables. So value, s.value, and value name equals s.key. Great. Now I'm going to set a breakpoint right here. I'm going to hit apply, close it, and now I'm going to launch this debugger. We're going to load symbols. I'm going to load the environmental variables that we need. We're going to loop through those. I'll hit OK. Now, just like the test, a green box will surround every process step that's on. But in this case, this is going to break right into the first breakpoint set. Notice I've got this, and I've got a new watch window down here. I've got value, value name. I can just simply function F5 through this and loop through all the values. And notice the values are changing in the watch window. Now I'm on the trace output. I can view the context. I can go in the ESB message and actually see things like the data. Pretty simple, pretty cool. Easy to work with. So extending Neuron, very easy. Testing Neuron, pretty easy. Debugging Neuron, pretty easy. Now, I can also use custom process steps. We looked at those a little earlier. Let's see what the one that we have does. I'm going to create a new process, just like so. And I'm simply going to drag this step on. Great. Let's see what happens. Well, I'll go ahead and run it, and it just prints out goofy as. So custom process steps are great because they're an alternative to just writing C# right in the process designer. You know, the nice thing with that is you don't have to compile anything in an assembly. This you do, but the upside is you can take your proprietary logic and put that into an assembly to protect it and have it driven by properties. And building a custom process step is incredibly simple. It's one interface. You're really just going in here. Let's open up Visual Studio. Notice I've got some Neuron assemblies referenced. All I'm doing, inheriting from this class. This attribute is used to auto-register everything. You're just saying, here's my step, here's a resource file, my name and my description in the resource file are just telling it, hey, what's the name in the library and what's the description in the library? If I go back, this display name is used as the name that gets put on the actual canvas. This is simply the name in the resource file that represents the icon, and I can create dynamically the path that I want this step to show up in. And notice, this is the exact same signature as in the C# step. So everything that you can do in a C# step, you can do in this. You have access to everything, configuration that works. And I can debug. If I want, I can go ahead and set a breakpoint here. I can attach the Neuron ESB Explorer. And let's find it in here, attach, go in here, run it. Great, right? I can see it. I can do anything I want. Again, really easy to work with this stuff. Now let's stop that, go in. Let's take a look at a different process. We have this unzip publish files process. So all these process steps are kind of interesting because they behave somewhat differently. They all do different things. So this is a compression step. You can both compress and unzip. In this case, you can unzip an inbound file, and that file might have multiple files within it. Great. Well, that means it exposes a set of message properties that we can inspect to determine how many files. If I go in this decisions shape, we use a condition, and this is again using kind of like a Visual Studio Editor. I can look at the property that tells us how many files were in that zip file. Coming down, I can set up the iteration. Using the compression, this is actually in a special format. So I can deserialize the bytes into our zip message and literally set it into a property bag. In this context of that property, it allows us to maintain state between all the different processes, or the process steps, that is, throughout an instance of a process. And then I can loop through. In set message, I'm really just setting the message and then setting some properties. In this case, I'm actually capturing the original file name. And I'm publishing out to a topic. Pretty easy to do. So I've got my subscriber already up. Let's clear the message history. Well, let's see what this does. If I go here, now remember, I can load messages from file. So if I hit load file, that means I can load that zip file, and it loads as a binary. I can go ahead and set the source ID to Playa Pub and set the topic to Playa. We'll just hit OK, and let's see what it does. Green bar goes down, iterate through everything, and it'll publish each message one by one. Notice they're actually showing up in the tool here. If I scroll down, I can see that custom property now, and I can see what the original message or the original file name was. Scroll down here, see another one, PNG file. Again, pretty simple to do these things. I wanted to show this because we'll be using this process later on in other demos. I hope that we were able to convey the richness and ease of use built into many of the Neuron ESB features. We work with our customers and our partners each day to get the insight we need to provide you with a better experience. Integration shouldn't be hard. That's why we built Neuron ESB. An evaluation version of Neuron ESB can be downloaded from our website at www.neuronesb.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again.